Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in today. This is the Bodega Cat Book Club Spiritual Edition. And today we're continuing our reading of Thiaoouba Prophecy, The Golden Planet. The subtitle is A True Report by the author who was physically abducted to another planet. And the author's name was Michel Desmarquet. He's a French guy. So, anyways, this book was inspired by an interview I did. I interviewed a gentleman named Samuel Chung. Apparently, he was very instrumental in getting this book translated and published in Chinese. And apparently, it's very popular in China, this book. So that I find that very interesting. So I will leave the link of that podcast down in the description box below. You can check it out. And while you're there, you can check out our other podcasts. We have I try to put out regular podcasts where I interview interesting people, and I have that on our website, which I will leave a link in the description box below there as well. So I have a dedicated tab for the podcast, so you could check them all out. We also have a other book clubs that we put out weekly. So on Wednesdays, we have our health book club where we read different books on health, um, how to live better, how to eat better, how to, take care of your body, take care of yourself, stay healthy. Thursdays, we have the financial book clubs where we read about anything finances, the history of finances, money, how it works, things like that. So you could come join us. If you can't join us, we put all our book clubs, past and future, on our YouTube channel. So you could check us out there. And we also put our podcast up there as well. So you could check us out on our YouTube channel. If you have any books you want us to that you want to recommend for us to read, we'd be more than happy to consider it, whether it's a spiritual book or a health book or a financial book. We love it all. We love to read. So we will consider it at our discretion. We like classic books because they have stood the test of time and they have been around for a long time. They contain a lot of wisdoms, a lot of knowledge. So we love that. Okay. And then what else do we got? We put out a monthly newsletter. You could check that out on our website as well. We have a dedicated tab where we put all our newsletters up, so you could check us out and sign up for our newsletters. It's free. And if you find this helpful, if you like this format, um, and you want to support us, you could buy me a coffee or check out our merch. We have many different merch with different designs. We're working on the holiday merch designs coming up. So come back often, check it out. We're going to have new stuff, hopefully all the time. And then if you're local in the LA area, Los Angeles area, come visit us in person in our healing center. If you're traveling to LA, come visit us. We'd love to meet you in person, get to know you. And there is nothing like face-to-face relationships. We use in our healing center, we use technologies based on Nikola Tesla's, the great scientist, Nikola Tesla's scalar wave research for holistic healings for both domestic animals, cats and dogs, as well as humans. So you could check out more information there. And yeah, if you have any other suggestions, different formats, different ideas, let us know in the comment below. We'd love to hear from you. And we'd love to know what you think so that we know how to improve what we're doing. Okay, so this particular chapter is chapter 12. And let's see here. The book itself doesn't have the chapter number. The chapter number is something that I added for myself for my own gratification. But anyways, I hope you are enjoying this particular book. Um, okay, let me move the camera in a little bit. If you have a book, you could follow with us there. If not, you can follow with us here on the in the camera. Whatever works for you. I know I'm a visual person, so I like to read as the person is reading. But anyways, so this chapter is titled Extraordinary Journey, Meeting Extraordinary People. And okay, here we go. When Tao finished speaking, I could clearly see that her aura had become dull. Outside, the rain had stopped. The sun shone on huge white clouds, tinting them blue and pink. The trees, whose branches swayed in a gentle breeze, looked refreshed, and 1,000 rainbows danced in the droplets of water, which clung to their leaves. The sweet songs of birds welcoming the sun's return blended with the soft musical sound of the insects and the light. That moment was the most magical I had yet encountered. Neither of us felt like talking, and we allowed our souls to drink their fill of the beauty around us. Uh-oh. I excuse me, I have a cat who is trying to get my attention. He wants me to open the door for him. So just give me 1 second. I will be right back. All right, Judy, come on. Okay, sorry about that. For those of you who have cats, we are not their masters. We are their staff. So I just opened the door to let them out. All right, so let us continue. I don't think we should have any interruptions from now on. Okay, it was the sound of laughter and happy voices that roused us from our peaceful state. Turning around, we saw Biastra, Latoli, and Lationosi approaching, each flying with her own Tara. Interesting word, Tara. There is a goddess named Tara, a Hindu, I think it was a Hindu goddess. She's a Hindu goddess. Green Tara, white Tara. I think there's a red Tara. Anyways, just an interesting thought. They landed just in front of the dokos and entered without fuss, large smiles illuminating their faces. We stood up to welcome them, and greetings were exchanged in the language of Thiaoouba. I was still able to understand all that was said, although I was unable to speak the language. This didn't seem to matter, though, since I had little to say, and in any case, if I spoke French, those who couldn't understand my words understood my message telepathically. Once refreshed with drinks of hydromel, everyone was ready to leave again. I put my mask on and followed them all outside, where Latoli approached me and attached a tara around my waist. Then in my right hand he placed a litiolak. I was quite excited at the thought that I was going to be able to fly like a bird. Since the first day I had landed on this planet and seen people fly by this means, I had dreamt of doing the same. But so much was happening so quickly that I must say I didn't expect the opportunity to arise. Latoli, I asked, why is it that you use a Tara and Latiolak to fly when almost all of you are able to levitate? Levitation requires great concentration and quite an expenditure of energy, Michelle, even for us, and it only allows us to travel at 7 kilometers per hour. Levitation is used during certain psychic exercises, but it is a poor means of transport. These apparatus are based on the same principle as levitation insofar as they neutralize what we might call the cold magnetic force of the planet. It's the same force that you call gravity and which holds all bodies on the ground. Man, like a piece of rock, is made of matter, but by neutralizing the cold magnetic force by raising certain high frequency vibrations, we become weightless. Then, in order to move and direct our movement, we introduce vibrations of a different frequency. As you can see, the apparatus that accomplishes this is for us quite simple. This same principle was used by the builders of the pyramids of Mu, Atlantis, and Egypt. Tao has already spoken to you of it, but now you will experience for yourself the effect of anti-gravitation. What speed can be attained with these apparatus? With this particular one, you can travel at around 300 kilometers per hour and at whatever altitude you choose. But it's time to get going. The others are waiting. Do you think I'll be able to use it properly? Of course, I will teach you how, and you must pay careful attention when you start. You could have a serious accident if you don't follow my instructions to the letter. Everyone was watching me. However, it was Latiunusi who seemed most amused by my anxiety. I held the litiolate firmly in my hand, its safety strap attached to my forearm. This meant that if I let go of the litiolate, it would remain with me. My throat was dry, I must say. I was not feeling very confident, but Latioli came over to me and put an arm around my waist, assuring me that she would not let go before I had familiarized myself with the apparatus. She also explained I didn't need to concern myself with the Tara attached to my waist, but that the Litiola was to be held firmly. First, one had to pull quite firmly on the large button, which rendered the apparatus usable, a little like turning the ignition key in a car. A tiny light appeared. A tiny light appeared, indicating readiness. The lithiolite was rather like a pear in shape. It was held with the base downwards, and its top ended in a mushroom-shaped hat, no doubt meant to prevent fingers from slipping. The pear was grasped around its collar. Latoli explained that this lithiolac had been specially made for me, since my hands were about half the size of theirs, and I wouldn't have been able to use a standard model. Besides, it is important that the size of the pear be exactly suited to the hand that holds it. It was slightly soft, as though made of rubber and filled with water. Instructions received, I gripped the litiolac so strongly that Latoli had just enough time to grab hold of me before we rose into the air. We had made a leap of 3 good meters. The others were around us, stationary in the air, at the height of about 2 meters from the ground, and they all burst into laughter at Latoli's surprise. Careful, Tao said to her. Michel is a man of action. If you put an apparatus in his hand, he will use it immediately. If you press the litiolat as you just did with a general even pressure, you will rise vertically. If the pressure is slightly greater with your fingers, you will go left. With your thumb, you will go right. If you want to go down, either release the pressure or to descend more quickly, you can press on the base with your left hand. As she spoke, the Toli had me practice the movements, and we had climbed to an altitude of about 50 meters when we heard Tao's voice. Well done, Michelle. You should let him do it alone now, Latoli. He has the idea. I would have liked her to keep her thoughts to herself. I didn't share her opinion at all, and I felt much more confident under the protective wing of Latoli, and I mean no play on words. She did release me, however, but remained close by and at the same height. Gently, I released my grip on the litiolat and ceased climbing. Releasing the pressure further, I began to descend. Reassured, I pressed evenly around the collar and shot upwards like an arrow, so far that my fingers froze and I continued to rise. Relax your hand, Michelle. Relax your hand, shouted Latoli, who in the wink of an eye had joined me. Oh, I stopped, or almost, at approximately 200 meters altitude over the ocean, for I had inadvertently pressed more strongly on my frozen thumb. The others joined us at our 200-meter high rendezvous. I must have been wearing a strange expression on my face, for even Latinusi burst into laughter, and that was the first time I had seen him do that. Gently, Michelle. This apparatus is very sensitive to touch. I think we can go on our way now. We'll show you the way. They moved off slowly, Latoli remaining by my side. We maintained the same altitude. By pressing with the palm of my hand, I advanced smoothly and soon noticed that I was able to accelerate at will, merely by regulating this pressure on the litiolate. Finger pressure regulated height and direction. I still made some unexpected swerves, especially when my attention was distracted by three imposing characters who crossed our path. In passing, they threw me a glance, obviously quite astonished at the sight of me. After a time, I judge it to be about half an hour, I began to master the machine, at least enough to fly successfully over the ocean. With no obstacles to negotiate, we gradually picked up speed, and I was even able to fly in formation beside my companions without straying too often. It was so exhilarating, I could never have imagined such a sensation. Because the equipment created kind of force field around me, making me weightless, there was no sensation of being suspended as there is in a balloon, nor was there the sensation of being carried by wings. Further, being completely surrounded by the force field, I couldn't even feel wind whipping at my face. I had the impression of being an integral part of the environment, and the more I exercised control over the apparatus, the more pleasure I gained from this new means of locomotion. I wanted to test my control and so descended slightly only to climb again. This I did several times, choosing to gain or lose altitude on the others. Finally, I moved nearer to Tao and telepathically communicated my euphoria, letting her in on my intention of skimming the ocean that stretched below us as far as the eye could see. She agreed, and the whole group followed me at water level. It was absolutely fantastic to be able to skim over the crest of the waves at a speed of approximately 100 kilometers per hour, as if we were all powerful gods, conquerors of gravity. From time to time, silvery flashes indicated we were flying over schools of fish. In my excitement, I was not aware of time, but it seemed that the voyage lasted 3 courses. No matter which way I turned my head, I saw only the line of the horizon. Then suddenly Tao telepathized. Look over there, Michel. Far away on the surface of the water, I was able to make out a speck that grew rapidly to reveal itself as a mountainous island of reasonable size. We could soon make out enormous rocks, bluish black in color, which plunged sharply into the blue-green waters of the ocean. By increasing altitude, we gained a bird's eye view of the whole island. There was no beach to be seen, the enormous black rocks prohibiting access from the ocean. The waves crashing into the base of their imposing masses were iridescent under the sun's rays, reflecting shimmering colors, which contrasted with the uniform black of the basalt. Halfway up the slopes, which faced inland, grew forests of gigantic trees, their foliage strangely dark blue and gold, their trunks blood red. These trees covered steep inclines right to the edge of the emerald green lake. In places, the surface of the lake was obscured by wisps of golden mist. In the middle of the lake, as though floating on the water, we could make out an enormous doko. It points upwards. I later learned its diameter was about 560 meters. Its exceptional size was not its only peculiarity, however. Its color was another. All the dokos I had seen to date on Thiaoouba were of a whitish color, even those at the city of the 9 dokos. This one, though, seemed to be made of pure gold. There it was, shining in the sun, and in spite of its very ordinary egg shape, its color and size rendered it majestic. Something else surprised me greatly. There was no reflection of the doko in the waters of the lake. My companions led me towards the dome of the gold doko. We flew slowly at water level, and from this perspective, it was even more impressive. Unlike other dokos, this one had no point of reference to indicate an entrance. I followed Tao and the Toli, who soon disappeared in sight. The other two were at my side, each having caught hold of me under an arm so that I wouldn't fall into the water. For, in my surprise, I had let go of my litiolat. I was literally stunned by what I saw. Here is what I discovered inside the doko. I could see about 200 people floating in the air with no help from any apparatus. The bodies seemed to be asleep or in deep meditation. The one closest to us floated about 6 meters above the water, for inside the doko there was no floor. The bottom section of the egg was actually in the water. As I have already explained, once inside a doko, you can see outside, as though there were nothing between you and the world outside. So in this case, I had a panoramic view of the lake, the hills and the forest in the background, and near me in the middle of this landscape floated 200 or so bodies. It was completely astonishing, as you would expect. My companions were watching me in silence, and unlike other times when my wonder had made them laugh, they remained serious. Looking more closely at the bodies, I began to notice they were generally smaller than my hosts, and some had quite extraordinary and some monstrous forms. What are they doing? Are they meditating? I whispered to Tao, who was at my side. Take your litiolate, Michel. It's hanging on your arm. I obeyed, and she then answered my questions. They are dead. These are corpses. Dead? Since when? Did they all die together? Was there an accident? Some of them have been here for thousands of years, and the most recent, I believe, has been here for 60 years. I think that in your current state of surprise, you're not going to be able to operate your litiola effectively. Latoli and I will guide you. Each of them took hold of me under an arm, and we began to wander among the bodies. Without exception, they were entirely naked. Among others, I saw a man sitting in a lotus position. His hair was long, of a red blonde color. He would have been 2 meters tall when standing. He had golden skin, and his features were remarkably fine for a man. And he was indeed a man rather than a hermaphrodite. A little further away lay a woman, whose skin was coarse like that of a snake or bark of a tree. She appeared to be young, although her strange aspect made it difficult to judge her age. Her skin was orange color, and her short curly hair was green. Most surprising, though, were her breasts. They were quite large, but each one had two nipples, separating from each other by about 10 centimeters. She would have been close to 180 centimeters in height. Her thighs were thin and muscular, and her calves were quite short. On each foot were three enormous toes, but her hands were exactly like ours. We passed from one to another, sometimes stopping, sometimes moving on, as one does among wax figures in a museum. The eyes and mouths of all these people were closed, and they all occupied one of two positions, either sitting in a lotus position or lying on their backs with their arms by their sides. Where do they come from? I whispered. Various planets. We spent some time before the body of a man, apparently in the prime of his life. He had bright chestnut hair that was long and curly. His hands and feet were like mine. His skin was of a familiar complexion, that of someone from Earth. In height, he would have been around 180 centimeters. His face was smooth, with noble features, and there was a soft goatee on his chin. I turned to Tao, whose eyes were fixed on mine. One would say that he came from Earth, I said. In one sense he did, but in another he didn't. You know him well by having heard of him spoke. You know him well by having heard him spoken of. Intrigued, I examined his face more closely until telepathically Tao said, look at his hands and feet, as well as his side. Tao and Latoli brought me closer to the body, and I could clearly see scars on his feet and his wrists, as well as a gash approximately 20 centimeters long in his side. What happened to him? He was crucified, Michel. This is the body of Christ of whom we spoke this morning. Fortunately, my host had anticipated my reactions and supported me under the arms, for I am convinced that that I have been hmm? for I am convinced that I'd have been unable to maneuver my litiolate. There I was, staring at the body of Christ. worshipped and spoken of by so many on earth, the man who had been the subject of so much controversy and so much research during the past 2,000 years. I reached out to touch the body, but was prevented from doing so by my companions, who drew me away. Your name is not Thomas. Why must you touch him? Is there doubt in your mind? Said Tao. You see, you confirm what I was saying this morning. You seek proof. I felt terribly ashamed for having initiated my gesture, and Tao understood my regret. I know, Michel, that this was instinctive, and I understand it. In any case, you can't touch these bodies. No one can, apart from one of the seven theories. In fact, it is the theory who install these bodies in a state of preservation and levitation, as you see them, and they alone are capable of doing so. These are the actual bodies they had during their lives? Of course. But how are they preserved? How many of them are there and why? Do you remember me telling you when we took you from your planet that there were questions you would ask in which we would give no answers? I explained them. I explained then that you would learn with us all you needed to know, but that certain things would remain a mystery because you must not document certain points. The question you have just asked cannot be answered for this very reason. However, I am able to tell you that there are 147 bodies in this doko. I knew that it would be futile to inquire further, but as we wandered among the bodies, I asked another burning question. Do you have Moses's body? And why are they all in levitation in this doko without a solid floor? We have only the body of Christ from your planet. They are levitated in order to be perfectly preserved, and the properties peculiar to the waters of this lake assist this preservation. Why? Who are all the others? They came from various planets where they have each had a very important role to play. One of the bodies I remember well. It was about 50 centimeters high and formed exactly like a being from Earth, except that it was dark yellow. It was dark yellow and had no eyes. Instead, it had a type of horn in the middle of its forehead. I asked how it was able to see and was told that there were two eyes at the end of the protuberance, multifaceted like the eyes of a fly. I could see the closed eyelid with several splits. Nature is very strange, I murmured. As I said, each body you see here comes from a different planet, and it is the conditions in which they must live which determines the details of the physical bodies of the inhabitants. I don't see anything resembling Archie, and neither with you. I didn't know why, but I felt I should not pursue this topic further. Throughout this macabre visit, I saw bodies resembling North American Red Indians, but they weren't. I saw others like Black Africans, but they weren't. Nor was it the body of a Japanese that I saw floating in the air. As Tao had said, Christ was the only body here that came, if one can say so, from Earth. After an indeterminate time in this extraordinary and fascinating place, my guides led me outside. A lightly perfumed breeze carrying the scent of a forest caressed us and did me much good, for after such a visit, in spite of it being enormously interesting, I was feeling quite drained. Tao, of course, realized as such and said in a lively voice, Are you ready, Michel? We're going home. These words, spoken intentionally in French and with an intonation distinctly earthly, refreshed me at least as much as the evening breeze. Taking hold of my litiola, I rose in the air with the others. As we flew over the giant forest that climbed the Rocky Mountain slope. As its peak, we could again admire the ocean that stretched as far as the eye could see. Following a macabre afternoon, and in contrast to it, I found this planet even more beautiful. I remember it occurring to me again momentarily that perhaps this was all a dream or an illusion, or that perhaps my mind was failing me. As usual, though, Tao was on guard and intervened with a sharp order that resounded telepathically in my head like a crack of a whip, dispelling my vague doubts. If you don't press your litiolac, Michelle, you will end up taking a bath. And if we don't hurry, night will overtake. Night will overtake us. That might be a little inconvenient for you, don't you think? Indeed, lost in my thoughts, I had descended and almost touched the waves. I pressed my litiolac firmly and shot up like an arrow, joining Tao and the others who were high in the sky. The sun was already quite low and the sky was totally clear. The ocean had taken on an orange color, which was surprising. I never would have imagined water could appear such a shade. Inquiring about it telepathically, it was explained to me that sometimes at this time of day, immense patches of orange colored plankton would rise to the surface. These waters, it appeared, contained enormous quantities of plankton. What a sight it was! The sky was blue-green, the sea was orange, and everything was enveloped in a golden light, which on this planet seemed to come from nowhere and everywhere. Quite suddenly, my companions gained altitude and I followed them. We were about 1,000 meters above the sea and accelerated in the direction we come from. I guessed north to about 300 kilometers per hour. Looking in the direction of the setting sun, I could make out a wide black band on the water's surface. I didn't have to ask about it. The answer came quickly. It is Nuroka, Nuroka, Nuroka. Sorry, butchered that name. Nuroka, one of the continents. It's as big as the whole of Asia. Are we going to visit it? I asked. Tao didn't reply, which quite surprised me. It was the first time she had ignored my question. I thought perhaps my telepathic powers had not been sufficient, and so I asked the question again in French, raising my voice as I did so. Look over there, she said. Turning my head, I saw a veritable cloud of birds of every color about to cross our path. Fearing a collision with them, I descended several hundred meters. They skimmed by me at an incredible speed, but was it they who traveled so fast or us? I thought perhaps it was our combined speeds that made them disappear so quickly, but just then something astonished me greatly. Looking above me, I saw that Tao and the others had not changed their altitude. How was it they hadn't collided with this winged squadron? Glancing at Tao, I realized she had followed my thoughts, and it occurred to me that the birds had appeared at quite an opportune time, just when I had posed my question. Accustomed to Tao, I knew that she would have her reasons for ignoring me, and I let the matter drop. I decided instead to take advantage of this opportunity to fly without wings, and I allowed myself to become intoxicated by the colors around me, which gradually changed as the sun sank towards the horizon. The pastel shades that washed over the sky were of a majesty quite indescribable with my pen. I thought I had already witnessed all the symphonies of color possible on this planet, and yet I was mistaken. From our altitude, the effect of the colors of the sky, sometimes contrasting with those of the ocean and sometimes complementing them perfectly, was spectacular. How incredible it was that nature could coordinate such a range of colors, always changing, always beautiful. I felt again the beginning of the drunkenness which had previously caused me to faint, and received the order, brief and clear, close your eyes immediately, Michelle. I obeyed, and the sensation of drunkenness dissipated. However, it is not easy to pilot a litiolac and to remain in formation with closed eyes, especially when one is a novice in the area. Inevitably, I strayed left and right, up and down. Another order was given, this time less urgent. Watch Lationusi's back, Michelle. Don't take your eyes off him and watch his wings. I opened my eyes to see Lationusi in front of me. Strangely, it did not surprise me at all that he had sprouted black wings, and I fixed all my concentration on them. After a time, Tao approached me, saying in French, We're nearly there, Michelle, follow us. I found it equally natural that Lationusi had now lost his wings. I followed the group down towards the ocean, where we could make out like a jewel on a colored tablecloth, the island where my doko was situated. We approached rapidly amidst a fantastic blaze of color as the sun dived into the waves. I had to hurry on my doko. Drunkenness caused by the beauty of the colors threatened to overwhelm me again, and I was obliged to close my eyes partially. We flew now at sea level and before long crossed the beach and plunged into the foliage surrounding my doko. My landing, however, was unsuccessful, and I found myself inside the doko, astride the back of a seat. The Toli was immediately at my side. She pushed in the button of my latiolak, asking me if I was all right. Yes, but those colors, I stammered. No one laughed at my little accident, and everyone seemed a little sad. It was so unusual for them that I was quite thrown by it. We all sat down and helped ourselves to hydromo and dishes of red and green food. I was not feeling very hungry. I had taken off my mask and was beginning to feel more like myself again. Night fell quickly as it does on Thiaoouba, and we sat in darkness. I remember wondering over the fact that while I could barely distinguish each of them, they could see me as easily as if it were daylight. No one spoke. We sat in silence. Looking up, I could see the stars appearing one by one, shining colorfully as though a firework display had frozen in the sky. On Thiaoouba, because the layers of gases in the atmosphere differ from ours, the stars appear to be colored and also much larger than they appear to us on Earth. Suddenly, I broke the silence, asking, quite naturally, "Where is Earth?" As if the group had simply been waiting for this question, they all rose together. Latoli took me in her arms like a child, and we went outside. The others led the way, and we followed a wide path that led to the beach. There, on the moist sand of the shore, Latoli set me down. Minute by minute, the firmament was illuminated by more stars as though a giant hand was lighting a chandelier. Tao approached me and almost whispered in a voice that was sad, and one that I could hardly recognize as hers. "Do you see those four stars, Michel, just above the horizon? They almost form a square. The one on the top right is green and shinier than the others." "Yes, I think that's it. Yes, it forms a square, the green. Yes. Now go to the right of the square and slightly higher. You will see two red stars quite close together." "Yes, keep your eye on the one on the right and go a tiny bit higher. Can you see a tiny white star? It's barely visible." "I think so. Yes. And on its left, a little higher, is a tiny yellow one." "Yes, that's right. The tiny white one is the sun, which lights up the planet Earth." "So, where is Earth?" "Invisible from here, Michelle. We are too far away." I remained there staring at the minuscule star, which seemed so insignificant in a sky filled with large, colorful jewels. That minuscule star, however, was perhaps at the very moment warming my family and my home, making plants germinate and grow. My family. The word seemed so strange. Australia, from this perspective, I had trouble imagining it to be the largest island on my planet, especially when even Earth was invisible to the naked eye. Yet, I'd been told we belong to the same galaxy and the universe comprised thousands of galaxies. What are we, poor human bodies? Hardly much more than an atom. End of chapter 12. Wow, very interesting, eh? Well, I hope you enjoyed that. We will continue our reading next time. And in the meantime, I hope you guys all have a great day, great afternoon, great evening, wherever you are at. And we'll come back next time and we'll see you again next week. All right, bye-bye now.